Good morning or good afternoon, 8th grade. Let's go ahead and jump into lesson 12. We're coming off of you guys just had taken your mid-unit 1 assessment. So what are we learning and doing today? We're going to analyze the purpose and motives for expressing information, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of using different mediums. You're also going to analyze cases of conflicting information. Before we do that, let's go ahead and go to our entrance ticket for today. Unit 1, Lesson 12. You are going to look at the definition of the word medium, and then what are all the mediums you use or interact with on a normal day that provide information for you, and then which one of these mediums do you think is most effective for conveying information. So after you do this, I would love for you guys to turn and talk, and then we'll come back together and talk about this a little bit together. So go ahead and do that now. All right, guys, so now that you've had a chance to do your entrance ticket and you've turned and talked to your neighbor, let's talk about some of the mediums that we interact with maybe on a daily basis. So pictures, photographs, books, online books, newspapers, news articles, videos, audios, whether it's the radio, a speech, an interview we listen to, an infographic, a poster or a chart. So that you guys could have chosen any of those. Social media, okay? And then the second question says, which of those mediums do you think is the most effective? So this is an opinionated question, and that's going to differ for each of you. Some of you may prefer audio as a way to communicate information. Some of you may prefer visual, and that's okay. So let's go ahead and look at the learning targets for today. We have 3 of them. The first one is I can identify advantages and disadvantages of using different mediums to present information about industrial organic farming. I can identify possible purposes and motives for presenting information on industrial organic farming and provide an example of each. I can analyze 2 texts that provide conflicting information on industrial organic farming and identify where they disagree on matters of fact or interpretation. So let's go ahead and move into work time A. I have a few questions that I want for you guys to think, pair, share together. So the first 2, what are your initial reactions to this photograph? So review the photograph on page 148. And what does this image show? And what information does this photograph provide? So go ahead and let's do some work with our elbow partners now. You guys are going to look at that photograph and answer these 2 questions. All right, guys, let's go and let's, again, we're looking at that photograph on page 148. 2 more questions for you to talk about with your elbow partner. Are there any advantages of presenting this information in a photograph? Are there any disadvantages of presenting this information in a photograph? So go ahead and talk about that with your partner now. All right, guys, and last slide before we get into some work for today. So go back and read pages 147 through 150. What is your initial response to what you just read? What information did this text give you? Are there any advantages of presenting this information through a medium of text? And are there any disadvantages? So go ahead and pause the video with your partner, read 147 through 150, and then talk about these things together. Your teacher can circulate the room and help you guys navigate some conversation. All right, guys, so now that you've done that, let's go and move on to your Analyze Different Mediums anchor chart, okay? And so this, your teacher should display this, and you guys are going to work to fill this in together, okay? So why might it be helpful to analyze and discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each of these mediums? Why are we having this conversation? I want you guys to pause the video and have that conversation out loud as a class. Why are we talking about different ways to interpret and gain knowledge, okay? Now that you guys have done that, I want you to fill this in together. So what are the advantages of photo? What are the disadvantages of photo? What are the advantages of video? What are the disadvantages of video? So go ahead and pause the video, and you guys are going to work through this as a class, and you're going to fill this chart in together, having some conversation about advantages and disadvantages. So go ahead and pause the video, and let's do that now. All right, guys, so hopefully you generated some good conversation from that. So now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the purpose and the motive. So the purpose of showing something in a photograph versus via audio, okay? Think Think like that. That's the way that we're going to take this conversation. So looking at our purpose and motives anchor chart, I want you to turn and talk. What is the meaning of the word motive? Turn and talk. What is the meaning of the word motive? So now that you've had some discussion about that, let's look at these on our anchor chart, the 4 different motives. So a social motive is one focused on how people interact with one another in society. Commercial motive is one that is focused on money making, consumerism, and our marketing. A political motive is one that is focused on the interest of a particular government, political party, or group. An environmental motive is one that is focused on benefiting the environment. All right, so again, I want you to turn and talk. Brainstorm this together with your partner. Give an example of a social motive, a commercial motive, a political motive, and an environmental motive. And if you need some help with this, your teacher can generate some discussion around the room as well. So go ahead and pause the video and turn and talk through these now. All right, guys. So hopefully you guys were able to talk about some different examples. I'm going to share a couple of examples with you right now. So an example of a social motive might be a pamphlet that's distributed that directs community members to free services like language classes or food pantry assistance that is offered. That's social. That benefits the people that interact in a society. Okay, so a commercial motive might be a television advertisement that's focused on someone buying a product, right? So you guys probably see those every day. A political motive might be a speech that is focused on supporting a particular candidate's policies. Okay, and lastly, an environmental motive might be a pamphlet that informs readers of the impact of a particular product, like weed killer, on the environment. All right, guys. So I want your teacher to come around and bring you guys a sticky note, okay? I want you to think about the purpose of the omnivore's dilemma, right? And on your sticky note, I want you to list one title along with the purpose and motive of a nonfiction book or article you have read this year. So something you guys have read in class maybe, or a video you guys have watched in class. So go ahead and pause the video and do this now. All right, guys, so we're going to move and work times C now, exploring conflicting information. Okay, so you guys have seen this as we've read through the text. So on page 147, there is a photograph of organic chicken packaging. Okay, I want you to explain something. I want you to understand that sometimes mediums present conflicting information. Okay. So think aloud. I want you guys to think aloud. So talk through this photograph together. Describe it. Talk about it. Talk about the packaging. Talk about what's for sale. What is the label display? Talk about all the pieces that you see. So go ahead and pause the video and do that now. All right, guys. So I want you in Google to search for another credible image that displays similar information. So your teacher can do this together. So I want you to search images of organic chicken packaging, okay? And talk about the examples that you found and what they imply, okay? So you're looking for things that these images are suggesting that chickens raised on these farms spend their lives happily roaming around in fields and just accessing the barn as needed, right? So I want you guys to compare and contrast other images of organic chicken that you find online. So you guys can pause the video and do that now. Okay, now that you've seen some other images, compare and contrast them. Talk about how they're different. What does one portray versus the other? So have some discussion around the images that you found and how they portray conflicting information. All right, guys. So on the bottom of page 147, let's look at this piece of text. Petaluma Poultry turns out to be more animal factory than farm, and stopping at, and then all of them are slaughtered 2 weeks later. Read that section, okay? Pause the video and read that section out loud. All right, guys, now I want you to answer these two questions and have some classroom discussion about this. In what ways is this information conflicting? What might this have to do with different purposes and motives? So go ahead and do that now. All right, guys, so you've got some questions that I want you to answer relating to industrial organic lettuce farming, okay? So this is going to be in your workbook on page 61. All these questions relate to industrial organic lettuce farming, okay? I'm going to read the directions out loud, so you're going to work with a partner to complete each task and then answer the questions, okay? So I want you to work with a partner, go through this together, and then come back to me, and we will talk about this a little bit. All right, guys. So number 1 says, what information do the photographs give the viewer? So you were supposed to read the text excerpts on page 133 through 134 and pages 142 through 146. You should have said, C, they show healthy looking fields and packages of organic lettuce. Number 2 says, what is one advantage of presenting this topic in print text format? You guys should have chose A, students can return to the text and reread it as needed. And then number 3 says, what is one disadvantage of presenting this topic in a photograph? You should have said B, it gives an incomplete understanding to a viewer about the topic of industrial organic farming. Okay, guys, so we're going to do some, I just want you guys to talk through this as a class, because again, we're preparing for a discussion coming at the end of this unit. So share what you think the advantages and disadvantages of information being presented in photographs may be. This is going to be reviewed for us, so go ahead and pause the video and let's work to do this now. Okay, guys, another one I want you to talk about as a class. Share what you think the advantages and disadvantages of information being presented in print may be. Again, just print, just text. Pause the video and let's have some class discussion now. And lastly, share what you think are the advantages and disadvantages of information being presented in the video or in a video. Okay, so again, out loud, have some discussion. Go ahead and pause the video now. All right, guys, before I sign off for today, I want you to talk about what went well today and what could be improved next time. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, but your teacher can definitely keep this up on the screen for you, and I'll see you guys again soon.